Turn my mic on. Welcome to the August 3rd, 2017 business meeting, and I'm going to turn it over to Don Krupp to take a roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. So we have Mr. Chris Story representing County Council this morning, and Mary Rathke, your clerk of the board, here to my left. Commissioner Humberston. Here. Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Chair Bernard.
Here. And I think we should cancel today's meeting because Les Poole's not here. How are we going to start? So, well, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, first up, we have a presentation. Oh, well, I guess
I'll go ahead and introduce it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a presentation from our Women, Infant, and Children program, otherwise known as WIC, and it's in recognition of August as World Breastfeeding Month. We have Lindsey Butler from our Public Health Department here to give this presentation to you. So welcome, Lindsey.
Wow, that's a big screen behind us. Look on the camera. Oh, Les is here. We can
Les
start.
is here.
Go ahead.
We wondered where you were.
Good morning. As you just heard, my name is Lindsey Butler, and I'm a program manager for public health here in Clackamas County. And on behalf of WIC and Public Health, I want to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to be here today and your time as well. Commissioners, county staff, and county members as well. I'm honored to present to you the impact of WIC. Properly known as the Special Supplemental Food and Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, we offer healthy foods, nutrition education, breastfeeding support, and act as a gateway to social service and healthcare referrals in the community. We serve moderate to low income, pregnant, postpartum, women, infants, and children up to age 5. WIC is often touted as the premier public health program. This is because WIC is efficient. In Oregon, just 5% is spent of the budget is spent on administrative costs. Nationally, 8%. WIC is a short-term intervention with long-term health outcomes, such as chronic disease prevention and obesity. This has an impact on the national deficit. You may be aware or may learn today that every dollar spent prenatally on WIC equates to up to $4.21 saved in Medicaid. And if you look at the impact locally, I'm using data from 2016 where we served about 8,200 participants last year. At any given time, our caseload is between 4,500 and 4,700. 73% of our families are working families. And when we look at the food benefits spent in our community, the food benefits we give them, the food packages, they spend at local grocery stores, farm stands, farmers markets, and pharmacies, and put about $2.8 million back into the local economy, and that's $55.2 million statewide. 2/3 of that is subsidized by the federal government, and 1/3 actually includes cost containment measures within WIC. And finally, the impact is felt on the health outcomes. We just conducted a community health assessment and identified priorities, still pending approval, that WIC definitely works to move the needle on. One of the things that we feel is very important for our community members is to reduce barriers to access to our services. And so we offer WIC services in 6 locations. The main office is here in Oregon City on Red Soils campus, and we have 5 throughout the county. Additionally, we have initiated and helped along advancements in technology in order to serve the clients the way that they want to be served, which is with technology. We moved from paper benefits back in 2015 and transitioned to the electronic benefit card called eWIC, which has helped to improve client satisfaction and also reduce stigma while shopping in other places. Other advancements that we've been able to do is include online learning modules for our families, again, reducing barriers with transportation and getting to appointments. We have initiated a texting software that allows us to communicate that way, and also a check-in system that includes an iPad, so for client queuing and also to let folks know that they have been seen when they enter our clinics. So then we ask, why does WIC work? Well, we offer nationally a model that's called participant-centered, where we work with the families to identify what it is they are ready to learn and make movement on in terms of change for their own healthy behaviors. And we deliver that education or connect them to someone that can. We have a team of professionals, paraprofessionals, that help and serve clients together. We have registered dietitians, we have lactation consultants certified by the Lactation Board, IBCLC. We also have office assistants and very compassionate nutrition counselors. I've worked for WIC and the county for about 4.5 years now, and I can tell you that this is one of the most compassionate groups, empathetic groups of people you will ever meet. Every day we see families that we've seen for years. And I can recall early July, we had a mother and a 2-year-old come in, and Alicia in the front said, Lindsey, this is the one. And I looked at her and I knew what that meant. 2 years ago, on August 6th, a little baby stopped breathing while she was waiting to check in the WIC office, and our staff rallied around her and were able to get services to that family. And we saw her just 3 weeks ago. The final is that WIC intervenes during a very critical time of growth and development. There is clear evidence that good nutrition during pregnancy and in the first few years of life has long-term positive impacts on health. Reduced low-income or low birth weight babies, as well as increased help for high-risk mothers. And today we're here to talk about breastfeeding. As Mr. Krupp mentioned, it is National Breastfeeding Awareness Month. And I'd like to recognize the impact of our peer counselors who you see here today. We have Tina and Aria, who provide peer-to-peer friend support to our mothers. They are clear subject matter experts, like I mentioned, certified, and they are there really to find out what is the mother's goal. If it's 1 day of breastfeeding, 1 year of breastfeeding, they are there to help them meet that goal and empower the family with the resources they need to make the best decision for them. I mentioned the community health assessment. The community health assessment that was conducted identified some priorities that were important to members of this community and identified by them. You can see some of the associated risks that they're concerned about, that our members are concerned about. And I assert today that breastfeeding and our breastfeeding peer counseling program, our WIC program, moves the needle on those health outcomes, those priorities that have been identified by our residents. Some of that includes for women and babies who have breastfed, have lower risks of certain types of cancers, diabetes, and that increased bond and connection that will help the infants grow into well-suited students later in life. When you look at the impact on the community, there's a component of sustainability. For example, when you think of formula, how it's produced, and how it's packaged, and how you need bottles, and everything else that goes along with it, that leaves a mark on the environment. Breastfeeding does not require any of that. And when we mentioned a little bit about the health benefits of breastfeeding and the impact that way, when you equate that to dollars, there's research that has been conducted by universities that shows that if 90% of all of the babies in America were breastfed for 6 months exclusively, we could save $13 billion annually in healthcare costs, which equates to a reduced tax burden and makes employers happy because babies are well, they are have less respiratory infections, and parents can go to work. So you've heard and seen some of the impact on the local community. What I have for you next is some testimony provided by WIC mothers that are here today. The intention is for you here to feel the impact. And it's important to consider here that these mothers, their story about breastfeeding and their partnership with WIC was really all about them. They had the power to make it through their challenges and to breastfeed their babies, and contribute to their health, all before they even came to WIC. But it just took a little bit of encouragement and the voices to say, yes, you can make it through these challenges, and they did. And so I invite you to hear today, Ms. Sharonda and Ms. Sherry. Please come on up to tell your stories.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Morning. Thank you. Well, I'm Sharonda Garrett Mead. Mr. Asher could not come today because he has a little bit of a fever and we need to keep him isolated. Well, I guess let me just start with when I first came to WIC was many, many years ago. In 2005, I had a little girl named Trinity. She was amazing. And I was working at, during the time of working at the prison, because I was working at Coffee Creek, WIC was very, very helpful. And they made sure I had a pump at work and could be able to pump while I was working, while she was in daycare, and all that stuff. So when God surprised me with my little bean Asher, it was a surprise. Okay, so through my pregnancy, when I found out, I was 11 weeks pregnant, and I found out that Asher had Down syndrome. And through this, there was a lot of things, like I was, overwhelmed, of course. My heart was heavy. And then I hear the doctors tell me all these things that you cannot do. Nothing positive, but, he won't be able to do this. He has low muscle, he can't do this, he can't do that, can't do this. And so then I remembered that WIC had a breastfeeding clinic. So I called, and the first person I met was Miss Aria, whom I love dearly. If I could take her home with me, we'd be good. I called her and I said, hey, my name's Sharonda. I have a child, gonna have a baby. And they're telling me that I can't nurse him. And she says, well, let's get you on our program first, so that way we can make sure that you're healthy, so that way your baby can be healthy. And so we started me on WIC, and then when Asher was born, she helped me with little tactics on how to latch him on because of low muscle tone for babies with Down syndrome. So she helped me get him latched on and everything else, and he nursed. Well, then we found out they had to have open heart surgery at 3 months old. So during that, they nicked an artery, and so then they had to put him on some special formula for three months. And they were just like, after this, he's not going to remember, he's not going to have that da-da-da-da. Aria's like, don't listen to that, we got this. So she told me to pump. So I pumped for 3 months. We stored the breast milk. And then I think it was like around 2.5 months, we started integrating the breastfeeding in with it. You would think that would be all right. No. So then, about a year later, found out that my son had leukemia. So Asher was diagnosed with AML leukemia. And then again, they said he would not be able to breastfeed. It was devastating, and I would like to give Aria all the credit, but the whole WIC team was awesome. They rallied together, rallied around us. They helped us through everything. They were there for us. It was like we were family. Asher became a very high commodity in the WIC office. He would walk in like he owned the place half the time, and with the help of breastfeeding through all of it, the doctors also were very surprised, but like it minimized like his reaction to the chemos, because we were in the hospital for 8.5 months. He went through chemotherapy. I would like to say he is now 2 years cancer-free. He's doing awesome. He's healthy, he's growing, he's taller than most babies with Down syndrome should be, and he is just thriving. And I personally believe without WIC, just him being healthy in general would be really hard. We still go to WIC to get, nutritional counseling and stuff like that with him, because he's a very picky eater. and he was having problems with gaining weight here and there, and WIC was very instrumental in it. But the fact that I nursed my baby that they said I would never, ever be able to nurse for 3.5 years, that's like a kick in the doctor's pants, so that makes me feel good. And that's my story.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharonda. And now we have Sherry here to tell her story as well.
Thank you. I brought David with me today. He's hanging out back there. He's a busy boy. And I also have Oliver at home. When I first went to WIC here in Oregon City, I was asked if I wanted to visit with the peer counselors for support. As I was a new mom with my first son. At first I thought, no, I'm good. I'm pretty confident and comfortable with breastfeeding. I don't have the time. But I'm glad that I changed my attitude and set that aside, because I've come to find the peers, Aria and Tina, at WIC as another vital piece to my support system. Going into parenthood, I had it all planned out. My kids were going to have everything I didn't get as a child, where I grew up hungry for food and love as my mom fed her addictions. My kids would always be well fed and well loved. When my first son was born, breastfeeding allowed me a great starting place for being that attentive mom, and it gave me the confidence as I listened to my maternal instincts. The WIC peers, Aria and Tina, and even Lindsey, they encouraged me to keep it up as long as I felt comfortable, and that whatever my decision was, I was a good mom doing a good job. So this instilled confidence was especially helpful when I became pregnant again with David. He spent his first 18 days in the NICU. He had 2 surgeries during that time. He was born with spina bifida, which literally means open spine. And as 90% of people with spina bifida also develop hydrocephalus, that was the case for him as well. While in hospital, I pumped breast milk around the clock for my son. After we were settled at home, no longer having the immediate support from hospitals, lactation consultants, I was comforted to know I had Aria to talk to. Her check-in calls and consistent follow-through when we played phone tag went a long way towards showing me that my family and I were cared for. The rapport Aria had built with me helped enable me to share about 6 months postpartum that my appetite was seriously lacking and that I felt a troubling disconnection from my children. Aria was compassionate and non-judgmental. We talked about healthy snacks, which is important for breastfeeding mamas. And she planted the seed that I later needed to begin getting better by encouraging me to talk to my doctor about medications safe for breastfeeding. Even with her kind, gentle approach, it was still another year before I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and then began taking medication. Becoming a parent triggered for me with each new child all of the unprocessed grief from my own childhood. I was suddenly just autopilot, a scared little kid, wanting to fight or flight, and my kids, meanwhile, needed me for their own survival. Without being successful in breastfeeding, I'm sure my disconnection would have been greater than it already was. Although breastfeeding isn't the only way to feed a baby, it was what I felt was natural and best for us. And even with a pretty strong support system, I still struggled with feeling isolated, and Aria was one of the voices reminding me I wasn't alone. Tina was there a lot when Aria was out. I think of the moms and kids out there with little to no family support, and I'm lifted up knowing personally how the peers can fill in that gap. It's easy to wonder how my early life might have been different if my mom felt safe enough with a helping professional to start her own process of healing. And having had Aria in my corner was not only helpful for me, she's now positively impacted the men my sons will grow to become. And so I said, if it's just ick, that wouldn't sound right. Add the W right up front, WIC, I believe that makes a world of difference. And without it, we would be doing a disservice to all of us. Aria and the peers, I really think, are necessary supporters, not only of the women that they see in their office today, but they're supporters of a healthier community we can look forward to tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
Well, thank you for telling us the story, and we think this job is tough. Thank you very much.
And I have one more mother that we'd like to hear from today, and this is Melissa. Melissa, please come on up and tell your story.
There's nothing like kids to brighten up the day. Wow.
Times two. So I'm Melissa, and this is Mira and Violet, and actually they're 18 months today, so that's pretty exciting. So I started going to WIC when I was pregnant with them, and I was the only mother that was having twins, expecting twins. So it was kind of a different adventure for me. So a lot of the other mothers had previous children or just had a singleton, and they had told their stories about how they had either breastfed their previous children or they're really excited about breastfeeding. And I remember thinking, man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to breastfeed my girls because so there's two of them. That's a lot more milk, and I was really nervous, but I really wanted to breastfeed. That was something that I was so passionate about, wanting to do that, giving the best start to my girls, because I know that breastfeeding is the best thing I could give for them when they were first born. And so I went to the breastfeeding classes, and they're really informative, and lots of support saying, you can do it, you can try, and we'll support you. And that was amazing because I needed all the support I can get, because at home I had my mom breastfed all three of us kids, and my sister had a baby, and so she had breastfed, and she's still breastfeeding. And then my best friend, she was a big supporter of breastfeeding, so I kind of had a big support at home. But still, the doctors were saying you might have to give them formula. One might get formula, the other one you could breastfeed or pump or whatever. And I said, okay, well, I want to try it. And so my girls are born a month early. Kind of regular for twins, because my girls are identical, so they shared a placenta, and it was kind of a higher risk pregnancy because of that. And so they were born a month early, and we didn't really have any NICU time except Mira. It was like a half a day in the NICU under the sun lamp, because she couldn't regulate her temperature. It was just a mini vacation right out of the womb. And so the first, they gave us donor milk in the hospital, because it took a few days for my milk to come in, because I said I don't want them to give them formula. I don't want formula at all. So they were amazing giving breast milk. The other mothers had graciously donated. And so my girls got the first start right off the bat, breast milk. I took them home after 5 days and started the journey of breastfeeding. And man, the first few weeks were crazy. They were crazy. Every 2 hours, this was our routine, was my husband, he was off work for the first 2 weeks, and so he could help me with this part. But every 2 hours we'd wake up, at night especially, and I would breastfeed them, and then we would give them each a bottle of pumped breast milk, and then I would pump for the next session. And that was every 2 hours for the first few weeks until they got up to weight, because we brought them home from the hospital and they were 4.5 pounds. And so it was very, it was stressful. I had little sleep, to say the least. We had very busy lives at that point. I don't know how we got through it, but we got through it. And I have WIC to help for that. They called and checked in on me and said, like, how are you doing? And I'm like, well, looks like we're doing. I tandem and still tandem feed them, so that means nurse them at the same time. And I had this giant nursing pillow, and it's ginormous, and I put them in a football hold. Oh, your football hold, and nurse them that way. And their 18 months, we're still breastfeeding 3 or 4 times a day. They love milk, but it's still beneficial to them. And so that's pretty much our story. Yeah, the support of WIC and the support of my family at home made it so that I could breastfeed them successfully, and I am a great producer of milk. And they're healthy because of my decision to breastfeed and keep with it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, they're very well behaved, probably better than Ken over there.
Hey.
I have one final note. Thank you, ladies very much for sharing yourself and your stories and your time today. Also, all of you, thank you again for your time this morning. My last request is I invite you on August 15th to come celebrate with us National Breastfeeding Awareness Month over across campus at the Oregon City WIC office, 999 Library Court. We're having a big family event to celebrate. It'd be great to see you guys come through.
Great. How about, you know, we're politicians and all these babies. It might be a great idea to take a picture. Is that okay with
We
you
just so
guys?
happen to have a photographer here today.
Well, let's make it happen. So we'll come up here, or?
So the
All right.
commissioners will come down and. Of course, of course.
Okay, I'm gonna take it. All right. 3, 2, 1. Yeah. And 3, 2, 1. Thanks, everybody.
Those people
Oh, freckle? Good idea. Freckle on it? I thought it was here. Someday.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Just a tiny little freckle.
A quick comment. Actually, it was really nice having you all here, having been a mother who breastfed all of her kids too, and I think Sonia should, yeah. It was
Seems like a
hard.
lot of work.
It is.
All right. Now we're moving on to citizen participation, and Les Pool is the card. And before you came in, I said we had to cancel the meeting because you weren't here.
Thank you.
Thanks for saving the day.
Well, there's a lot of pressure on Les right now because it's a very tough act to follow. So
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it is and was, and sitting there, first thing I was thinking is I'm going to walk up there and thank my mom. Thank you, Mom. So I've had pretty darn good health, and I think it started right there. You know, this week it was ironic because I was really troubled to even think about bringing it up. But here we see tens of thousands of people that are getting benefits in Oregon that aren't qualified. And that's the other side of providing services. And I'm troubled by the fact that this comes out as soon as the legislature's done with tax increases. As soon as the legislature convenes, we get what I like to call our summer surprise. And in spite of that, in walks Wick and Chandra and these ladies who obviously have benefited from a great program, one that's been around forever. And it's like Meals on Wheels. It's well run, it's focused. When I go to the store and I see that there's a WIC symbol at the dairy case, I know we're subsidizing milk for children and moms. When I see that, I don't go, oh, there's another one of those programs that's not well run. I think the exact opposite. So my message is kind of a double-edged sword, but that's what you deal with in trying to run government and be the head of a giant business that's also a social service provider and everything in between. A couple of quick things. One is I'd like to chat with some of the commissioners and maybe Gary Schmidt or someone about outreach for Damascus. I got a couple of thoughts, and I know you folks are just getting buried with planning. There's a lot going on, but I'm real concerned about Damascus, and it does tie into the whole zoning and proliferation of the marijuana industry, which is also a double-edged sword. But I would like to meet, sometime in the next month or so before September comes with a couple of the commissioners, and let's talk about what we can do out there, because I keep saying it, but the growth is there, the pressures are there, and I invite any of you Friday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to drive out 212 out to 26, because it's basically our main connector. It's our only connector between Clackamas and 26, and it's overloaded. At the same time, when you get into Clackamas at 224 and 212 there, where it used to be the worst, it's dramatically improved. So that's because of the Sunrise Project. And Chair Bernard mentioned last week that I and others need to pursue that, and we do. If you got a few minutes tomorrow and you're not doing anything on a 100-degree day at 5 o'clock, go out on 212 and watch somebody try and make a left turn. I mean, it's really bad, and you all know where Sunnyside Road comes in. I mentioned it before. Sunnyside comes in at a weird angle. Foster comes in at a weird angle, and basically you got nothing but a mess there in the future. So I don't need to belabor it any further, but anything I can do to help, I will. And lastly, looking forward to the fair, looking forward to Gladstone's festival this weekend. There's lots of good stuff going on. If you come to Gladstone, the festival's in a park with a lot of big oak trees. There's a lot of shade there, so it's not out in the open field. Also, they got a killer water feature for the kids. So as long as the kids are being hosed off, it seems like things go well. Anyway, I appreciate the time as always, and I'm glad I was here so that we could have the meeting today.
Yeah, I think that changing the name from a killer water feature might be appropriate. An exciting water feature. All right, next is a public discussion item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This public discussion item is to consider a resolution reaffirming Clackamas County as nonpartisan, and we have Mr. Gary Schmidt here to present this item to you. This is a public discussion item, so anyone who is interested in commenting on this would be welcome to speak to the board. So, Mr. Schmidt?
Yes, Commissioners, in June of this year, when you approved a resolution reaffirming Clackamas County as a welcoming and inclusive county, Commissioner Savas raised the idea of including comments that related to making sure that political discourse was also welcome and that all perspectives and points of view are welcome here in Clackamas County. And at the time, while you did not edit that particular resolution, you agreed as a commission to come back with a separate resolution, which is what is before you today. And this resolution reaffirms Clackamas County as nonpartisan. And in particular, I'll just read the therefore clause of the resolution because I think that tells the story of why this is here today, that the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners hereby resolve to affirm the value of nonpartisanship in its deliberations and determinations and vows to respectfully take into consideration differing political perspectives on proposed policies, and the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners, elected on a nonpartisan basis, will leave partisanship at the door to fully serve all the residents of Clackamas County. So staff feels that this is in line with the inclusivity resolution you passed and is an important message that you could deliver to the residents and public of Clackamas County. So I'm seeking your approval of this resolution today.
Great. Paul?
Well, yeah, so when we were talking about how, when we had the inclusion resolution before us, we were talking about how people were treated differently for many things, whether it's the color of their skin or where their background or whatnot. And so it seemed to me, knowing that there seems to be a lot of political dialogue and concern what's taking place in Washington, D.C., that, that takes, that that takes root in a lot of things that we do, that sometimes people are treated differently because of their party affiliation. And I've realized that in my 7 years here, that, and I don't mean just here at the county, but in this position, that yeah, there are some, obviously somewhat even barriers sometimes, that even friends or past friends now treat me differently because maybe of a party affiliation that they perceive as being committed to whatever platform maybe that they are not in agreement with. But I've never really been a person who took on this role or my past roles with a viewpoint of introducing partisanship in the local services we provide. As I always said, you know, that pothole out there, it's not a Republican pothole, it's not a Democratic pothole. We have a tremendous independent group in Clackamas County that are neither Republican or Democrat, but they're independent. We have a large non-affiliated other parties that are out there, and so sometimes I think they get lost. That balance, I think, gets lost, and that our needs out there and our responsibilities for those needs have no partisan basis for that. So what I've noticed, you know, even when I won office in November of 2010, but prior to being sworn in, that as I was coming to business meetings of the county, that resolutions were being put forth, and when I took the role after being sworn in, resolutions were seen to come forth, and as issues came forth, there was a partisan, I thought, kind of a partisan platform spin to those, or a political element to that maybe didn't serve us all so well at times. So I have been somewhat resistant or adverse to resolutions, unless they really have a meaningful purpose and actually can serve our citizens. And so the irony here today, and with a little bit of humility and a little bit of shame, that I'm actually introducing a resolution. But the original language that I had introduced, and I'm going to read what the language was, that got omitted or deleted. I didn't have the support to do, but I think it was important. I want people to know that my intention was not to proliferate or increase activity of resolutions. So the language that was removed was, in particular, the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners will not endorse politically based resolutions or proclamations. That was the language I actually wanted in the resolution. And that's not before us today, and I'm not going to here to push that or change that today. There's probably not support for that, but I just wanted on the record that I am reluctantly supporting the resolution, but I don't support resolutions as per se, and my goal was to take out that element. But here we are. I'm going to support the resolution, but I do think that it was odd enough that when we do the inclusion resolution, it was only a week later when one of our congressmen in Washington, D.C. was shot. And fortunately, it wasn't fatal. But as we know, a little bit of the story behind that was seen to be, because he had a list of party members, and I think that was presumed to be that they were on his hit list because of their party affiliation. So it was ironic, and not ironic, but it was coincidental that a week later after we did that actually take place. And so sorry for taking so much time and dialoguing on this, but I thought I should get that out.
Well, I think the idea here is actually, you know, global warming could be seen as a political, in support of the Paris agreement, could be seen as political, but it's not. It's science. But the real reason why I think this is important, because there was a meeting where a gun resolution was brought up specifically for political reasons, as far as I'm concerned. And I think what's really important here is that when the audience does stuff, I would expect support on your part and all of us to not allow it, or to try to curb that, you know, because there have been meetings in the past where it was the left and the right, and they would be clapping or yelling at them because they were a Democrat or a Republican, and it wasn't so issue specific. It's just that one group thought one thing, one group thought the other. You can decide whether that's a political thing or not, but it was pretty obvious a few times that that's exactly what it was. And that's why we tried to write some sort of, a desire that the audience also be, neutral and just present their case and go on to the next one without criticism of the people sitting up at the, speaking to us. So I hope that, this idea moves forward. But we also, and I agree, we need to maybe talk about how many resolutions are we going to have a year. Shouldn't be one every month or every meeting. Maybe we say we'll look at 6 or 7 a year. But that's something I think we need to talk about too, maybe in one of our discussions. Anyway.
Yeah, my only thing I would like to say is that as many issues as we have out there, and as little time as we have, that focusing our energy on solutions is imperative. And these things sometimes take up a lot of time. It's convenient, of course, when they don't, but when they take up time, I think that time can be better spent on solving some of our issues out there, or reading or getting into the details of issues to make better decisions, or whatever it may be. There's so much responsibility that we have, and there's so little time to do that, I'm just grateful for the accomplishments that we make and the board support for those accomplishments that we can make along this journey of 7 years, at least on my end. But I just want to make a difference and see us be successful. I know our staff and ourselves and everyone wants to be successful in solving our problems out there. But as poverty grows, and some of the perils that are taking place, and I don't always want to be negative. I just never, honestly, I say this, even said it yesterday, I never imagined that what I foresaw would be as bad as it is today. And I think with that urgency to help those folks along and to solve those problems is more pressing than it's ever been. So I just want to get back to the business that we were elected to do and focus, and I know that we all do. I don't doubt that any of us up here share that, but we just got to roll up our sleeves and get to work and focus on those things that accomplish just that.
Yeah, okay. Sure, I was going to ask if anyone would like to speak on this matter, even though this is different. The crowd's so huge.
Interesting discussion, and must rule Gladstone. I didn't intend to speak, but I support this, and at the same time, I was thinking to myself earlier that we can spend an awful lot of time making statements versus getting things done. And I know staff time's expensive. Some of these things go pretty quick. I also know that you're approached probably 30, 40 times a year with different things people would like to see resolutions about. So I sure agree with keeping it to a minimum. But I do support this, and I want to remind the counselors, there we go, the commissioners, that shortly after Ken and Sonia were sworn in, people talked about how things was going to be different. And sure, there's been some changes, but really your mission and what you're doing hasn't changed radically. And it can't change too politically, or this will become a political dialogue like that. I mean, it will take seconds. And we all have positions. Some people are more party-oriented. As Paul said earlier, we're trying to represent everyone. And what I just wanted to remind every one of the commissioners before me is, when our 2 new commissioners were sworn in, I came up and I said, you're nonpartisan, and you took an oath to represent everyone, and that's 400,000 people. And that's a real tough job. And everyone has a political background. I can look at every voter's pamphlet in the last 4 elections. And I'll bet you that every nonpartisan position, of which this is, nobody in their voters' statement says what party they belong to. And this is a nonpartisan forum to the best we can. Some folks do go out and say, hey, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, you know, but for the most part, my point in saying that nobody in the voters' pamphlets saying what party they belong to, what I'm really trying to say, and that's an exaggeration, but I'm trying to say that it doesn't matter as much in this place as it does in Salem and DC. And I think that's what Paul's trying to say. And sorry it took me so long to get there, but I think that's really what matters, is that as commissioners, as folks running an incredibly important board, it's more about how you manage the money and that you can be efficient in what you're doing than what party you belong to. So let's get this done, and as Paul said, we got a lot before us, so let's move forward. Thank you.
Great, but I do think resolutions make a statement to the public about where we are, and we've really tried to make them non-political. You know, that we support, you know, protection of the environment, and we listen to everyone, which is what this says today, or you know, everyone who comes before us, we look at them as equals. And I haven't seen a lot of partisanship on this commission, but you know, I will say there is a difference. The way I think of my philosophy is more aligned with one group, while yours might be aligned with another. But this isn't the place to do that. I wouldn't go to Salem if somebody paid me to go to Salem.
Me either.
Because I happen to, one thing about this job that I say all the time, I don't have to give up my values to vote on something. I always vote my values, and I think that's what we see up here today and every other day, is that we vote our values. Our values may differ, but our job is to vote our values, and I'm not going to go to Salem and change my values to get something I want done. So I'm glad I'm here, not there.
And next week will be at the fair, is that right?
Is it next week?
Week after.
Week after.
2 weeks. 2
Well,
weeks
you
we're
go
at the
ahead and
fair.
go. I'll see you there.
I don't want to show up in Canby and be at the wrong place. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to make an announcement. We participate in the fair in various things, and Ken is the liaison to the fair board or the event center, and look forward to that too. It's going to be perfect temperature, about 72. All right, so entertain a motion.
Well, Mr.
Oh, you got a light on now. Okay.
And I will be prepared to make a motion also, unless Commissioner Savas would prefer to make the motion.
Sure,
Okay.
I will.
My basic comment was, and I might be sort of reiterating what was said, so I'll make it quick, but purposes of resolutions should not be gotchas for your colleagues at this dais, quite frankly. The purpose is to articulate principles that we do try to adhere to. I think that's the whole purpose of resolutions. We'll not be perfect at it, and we always come at this job with a philosophy, each one of us, that is going to influence our perspective and our judgment. But in the main, I think the objectives that we have are pretty close to the same. Oftentimes, the only real difference, as Paul and I were talking about earlier, is how do you get there? We oftentimes want the same things. We just don't always agree on the best way to get there, but we do tend to work it out pretty well. That said, I'll defer to my colleague.
Yep. Another comment. I just want to, before I make the motion, I want to say one thing. The reason it says this is a resolution reaffirming Clackamas County is nonpartisan, remind everyone that in 2007 on the ballot, I believe Clackamas County had on the ballot as the commission changed from 3 commissioners to 5. Included on that was we also went and the voters approved making Clackamas County a nonpartisan county. So that's why the language is in there of reaffirming. So with all that said, I move we approve the resolution reaffirming Clackamas County as nonpartisan.
And I'll second that.
Any further discussion? So it's been moved, we approve the resolution reaffirming Clackamas County as nonpartisan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. So just to clarify, it was 2008, because that's the year I ran.
Okay.
And, yeah, because I actually went for an appointment, which was partisan. You remember that? And the stuff we're going to do with the replacement of Ann Leininger is also partisan. So the Democratic Party will forward some names, which we'll interview along with Multnomah County and make the appointment. Well, I think we're not sure the date yet, but are we sure the date yet? Does anyone know? No, okay.
That I'm aware of.
All right, so the next item, yes.
I just want, and because we didn't read the resolution aloud, I just want to make sure people know that they can go on the website and look up the resolution to see what we're passing today. But the one thing we didn't do was read it aloud. I'm not saying we do, but just wanted to just mention that they can find it there on the website.
Okay, great. The next item on the agenda is a consent agenda, and I believe that Don is going to be reading this, because
I am going to do that, yes, for you today. So here it comes. Okay, the consent agenda for August 3rd, 2017, Health, Housing, and Human Services. Approval of an agency service contract with Lifeworks Northwest for Assertive Community Treatment. And approval of Intergovernmental Agreement number 154378 with the State of Oregon Department of Human Services for the operation of the Job Opportunity and Basic Skills Program. For the Department of Transportation and Development, approval of Amendment number 2 to the contract with Parametrics for engineering services for the Signal Project at the Carver intersection of Highway 224 and Springwater Road. For the Finance Department, authorization to purchase 14 2017 Dodge Chargers for the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. For the elected officials, approval of previous business meeting minutes. For the Department of Disaster Management, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Portland for purchase and reimbursement activities for the fiscal year 2016 U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Urban Areas Security Initiative grant program. For Business and Community Services, approval of an allocation certification agreement with the Oregon State Marine Board for the Maintenance Assistance Program 2017-2018 funding. For County Council, release of an interest in land located near Molalla in the vicinity of South Low Road, and approval of a settlement agreement between Wildish Standard Paving, Clackamas County, and the Clackamas River Water District relating to the Carver Bridge project. For Water Environment Services, approval of Amendment number 2 and renewal number 3 to the contract documents with Rich Wine Environmental Incorporated for wastewater process engineering and technical assistance, and approval of early work amendment number 1 for the Kellogg Creek Water Resource Recovery Facility Improvement Project. And that's the consent agenda for August the 3rd, 2017.
Do any commissioners want to remove or pull an item from the consent agenda?
I don't wish to remove one, Mr. Chairman, but I'd like to ask the manager a question. I guess it would be item 6. It's the approval to purchase 14 vehicles for the Sheriff's Department. That strikes, I'm not quarreling with the fact that they need the vehicles. That's not my issue, but that's an awful lot of vehicles in one purchase. And I'm curious as to why there's not more of a rotation that allows for smaller purchases over a period of time.
Well, in fact, that actually is part of a replacement program that is managed by the Sheriff's Office in cooperation with our fleet management staff. So it's part of the normal rotation routine and part of what was placed in the budget for this current fiscal year as part of the plan for keeping up and maintaining those vehicles as current.
Do you know how many they have in their fleet, in the Sheriff's Department's fleet?
I can't tell you that number, but I'll get that for you.
The reason I'm asking is when I first went onto a school board, we ended up having to purchase, I think it was 6 or 7 buses, school buses, that in the early 80s were $80,000 a piece. And it was because they didn't have a decent rotation program, so where you could buy 1 or 2 a year or every other year, accomplishing the same goal but not without that big of an impact on your budget on any given year. And so my question is around that factor. If the sheriff has 28 vehicles and we're replacing half of them in one shot, it strikes me as not necessarily the best way to go.
Yeah,
Probably
so
100.
I would suspect we're talking about considerably more than 28 vehicles.
And we may well be, so.
We're talking about in the hundreds, so.
Okay. I could use a little education on it in that case.
Okay.
So I would appreciate that.
Happy to do that for you.
Thank you.
In previous budgets, we've had this discussion and talked about, we actually added miles to it before we thought they should exchange it to a certain point where they said it might be unsafe to go beyond that. Yeah, we've had this, but I'm sure they'd be happy to update you.
Yeah, happy to do that. The replacement schedule is really, based on the number of years, the mileage for the vehicles, which is based, and the decisions about when to replace them. And I don't have the specifics for you at my fingertips, but the decision about what criteria to use is really based upon our experience about what it takes to and what it costs to repair those vehicles to keep them operational and on the road.
Yeah, again, I wasn't quarreling with the need for the vehicles. It was more a matter of the rotation aspect of it. For me, it's kind of like deferred maintenance. When you get behind in deferred maintenance, the cost is going to be considerably higher. And if you are purchasing a whole bunch of vehicles at one time, instead of spreading it out over a longer period of time, it's a little more of an impact on your budget. But I will defer to you and ask for a little more education.
Happy to follow up.
Thank you.
I will say I'm disappointed this doesn't include my Tesla Model X that I have.
You can't have everything.
Yeah, when's my helicopter coming? I wanted to note the item with the settlement agreement on the Carver Bridge. This has been a long process and a lot of discussions, a lot of lawyers, a lot of potential lawsuits, and I'm happy to see that we did finally come to a settlement. This does not mean the bridge is going to be done right away. I think they said the spring of next year for various reasons. I'm happy to see this move forward because I'd say that of the transportation phone calls or emails, this is probably one we get quite a few of. So I'm happy to see that move forward. So entertain a motion?
It's already been.
Has it? No.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And next up is the county administrator updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually have a number of items to share with you. First, I wanted to make folks aware of the fact that given the very hot weather that we're experiencing, that will probably continue on and through Friday of this week, there are a number of cooling centers that have been opened in Clackamas County. I think the current list has some 28 different cooling centers geographically located throughout the county. These include libraries, churches, senior centers, in some cases city halls. And of course the opportunity is there to provide the public the chance to be able to get some respite from the hot weather. Want to make sure folks are paying pretty close attention to taking care of themselves and taking precautions to protect themselves and their families and their pets during this period of time. Any experience of, say, dizziness, nausea, headaches, rapid heartbeat, chest pain, fainting, breathing problems may all be a sign of being too much exposure in the hot weather. The tips that I would suggest to folks is that you avoid the sun and strenuous activity, particularly between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Try to take advantage of going to an air-conditioned building for several hours during the hottest parts of the day. Participate in activities that keep you cool, such as going to the movies, and I would recommend going to see Dunkirk at your local theater with a tall, cool soda along with it. Wear a wide brim hat and light-colored, lightweight, loose-fitting clothes. Mr. Humberson, I don't see your cowboy hat.
It's in the office.
Is okay, so. And set your air conditioner. If you don't have air conditioning, take a cool shower twice a day. Drink plenty of fluids, use sunscreen, stay in shaded areas whenever working outdoors, and be sure your pets have plenty of water and are able to be located in shaded areas. The county's website has all of the cooling centers listed on them, and you can reach that website directly from the county's splash page or directly at www.clackamas.us/social services/relief centers.html. So everybody try to stay cool. I've got a couple of other nice items about county operations to share with you. One is, as we always do, we get lots of great feedback about our Transportation and Development Department. This one about our Transportation Maintenance Division. We received a message via the website stating, I emailed about a site obstruction on Wilhite and Herman Road in Malala, and I would like to thank the road department for their quick response in making that intersection a lot safer. The job was taken care of within 2 days, and that is impressive with all the roads in Clackamas County. Thank you, and I just wanted to say great job to our transportation maintenance staff in demonstrating excellent service to the county and our residents. Then a couple of our departments have participated in several community events here recently to talk about the many things that we do. First, this past Tuesday, our Water Environment Services staff participated in the National Night Out events in Oregon City and in Gladstone. There were approximately 800 county residents who attended those events, and our West staffers shared information about how the department protects public health, the environment, and our economic future. We also had several representatives at last weekend's Day in Damascus. We had staff from our communications operations, disaster management, and resource conservation and solid waste, meeting and mingling with some 600 to 700 people talking about the many things we do. Finally, I wanted, and I don't know that I brought my glasses with me. That's okay. Well, I'm talking about my dark glasses. Just an early note for folks that on August 21st, we are going to experience a rare and historic solar eclipse in the path of totality, in which the sun's completely blocked, will pass through the southern part of Clackamas County. So we are expecting Oregon to be visited by as many as 1 million people. And this is, for us here, maybe even a once-in-a-lifetime experience to witness a celestial spectacle. We do have a website. Oh, here we go. Now, if I put these on, I won't be able to read what I've got here, but I'll just put them on for a second.
You can't put them over your glasses.
Yeah, I can't see a thing. So, my understanding though is once you're looking at the sun with those, you can see the sun. It's important though that folks use these certified glasses if they're going to look up at the sun during the eclipse. Anything less than this, you could sustain eye damage. So I recommend you get these. For folks who are going to the Clackamas County Fair, August 15th and the 19th, we'll have free eclipse glasses available that we're handing out at the County Tourism and Cultural Affairs booth there, so folks can get copies of these. We also have on the web page a whole web page devoted to the eclipse at www.clackamas.us/eclipse, and also our Tourism and Cultural Affairs Department has a website devoted to that as well for folks to learn more about visitor information, also learn how to enjoy the eclipse the best way possible. So with that, I will hand this over to you to finish up for the morning.
Great, thank you, Martha.
All right, well, I'm going to start, folks, by reading an email I just got, and I'll forward it to you. It says, "Hello, Commissioner Schrader. I'm Tom Gustafson and was a participant in the hearing today, which eventually changed some zoning regulations to allow for a pilot program of transitional housing in the LI and GI urban zones in the county. I'd like to be involved in the roundtable that you mentioned toward the end of the hearing, which would focus on discussing and identifying what can be a beneficial site for this project for both residents and local business owners. As you mentioned in your remarks, the county has perhaps not done the best job of communicating with the public the background work it has done and what it has learned in this process. I agree with your comment. I would appreciate you emailing me or putting into snail mail a copy of a report that was referred to several times during the hearing. I have not seen this report and feel many questions that myself and other business owners have can be answered by work already done. I think it's essential for the local business community to become engaged and accepting of this project if it is to be successful. On the Opportunity Village website, a long list of private and business donors for the project is a bullet point which states 90% of local businesses were in favor of the village. It's an understatement to say we are not at this level of support yet. I look forward to receiving more information from you on this project. And it's public record, but I won't mention the business person, but he is a managing partner of a firm. So I want to just respond to this. And basically, I just want to apologize to staff because it's my job as your county commissioner to make sure these kinds of communications get out. And what I communicated yesterday was the essential information that the interdisciplinary work that they have done was probably some of the most remarkable work I've ever seen. And I want to thank them again for that. It was absolutely engaging, amazing. To me, it's something we should continue, a model. I know, Dawn, I'm looking at you, you're nodding your head. A model we can use to help solve problems. But I think what I needed to do better, and I'm going to own this, is that when you realize and know that you're going to be doing something so different, it's very important that you get that information out to people. And so my vote yesterday was not a reflection on staff work or on a reflection of the fact that I want to have veterans housing, I want to cite it, I want to do it. It's more of a process issue with me, and that I think that we need to engage these broader stakeholders as well as all of our housing advocates, because once they are engaged, they actually help with siting, they will help with money, they will help with building, they will help with bringing this to a level of awareness where we can build a model of cooperation. And I want to thank Commissioner Pat Farr, who was really the first commissioner to move ahead and work with that kind of a model. So I'm looking forward to moving ahead with this. And again, thank you so much, staff. Please know that I promise I will do a better job of communicating with the right people at the right time. And this gentleman did ask for the work, a copy. I believe it's public, isn't it, Dawn? Yeah. A copy of the work that the staff has done, at least to give them a basis of where do they go from here. The other comment I'd like to make has to do with some other activities I've been doing. I had an opportunity to go to the chain of command, handing over the United States National Guard. So we have a new commander of the Guard, and we'll be working closely with him on the Willamette Falls locks. And when I met him in the line, I said, yeah, I'm the commissioner that's working on the locks. He goes, oh, yeah. Okay, so they are well aware of that issue. So that's great. I'll have an opportunity to meet Guanyun County officials early next week, and Commissioner Humberdson and my colleagues, Commissioner Fisher and Commissioner Bernard, Commissioner Savas, will take over from there and show them the beauties of our county. And that's about it for me. So let's move to arts and culture activities in the county. Art in the dark, suspended in trees, surrounded by beauty and illuminated by the stars. AWOL's signature Art in the Dark show is fantastical, illuminated full-length evening production set under the trees at Mary S. Young Park in West Lynn. This year's show, one shy of 10, The Intangible Dimension, is intriguing, eerie, and mysterious. You won't want to miss it. Friday through Sunday, 8:30 p.m. at Mary S. Young Park in West Lynn. Clackamas Repertory Theater, The Melody Lingers On. How is it that a man with limited formal and musical education and inability to write in any key except F sharp, without the aid of a transposing piano, was able to create some of the most versatile and memorable music the world has ever known? Find out how these musical masterpieces were created in this sweet, romantic, semi-autobiographical musical featuring the works of Irving Berlin. Thursday, August 3rd, and Saturday, August 5th, 7:30 p.m., Sunday, August 6th, 2:30 p.m. at Osterman Theater on the CCC, Clackamas Community College campus. If you want any more information on this or other arts activities, go to clackamasartsalliance.org.
Thank you. Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, things are a little bit slower this week than they have been in the past, but Saturday I had the opportunity to attend a Bridging Cultures barbecue in Canby. Some good hamburgers and hot dogs and some good camaraderie with some of the folks that live in Canby, our Mexican-American community as well as the Anglo community. It's a regular event once a month in Canby during the summer, and I'd encourage others to come and enjoy some good food. Tuesday, I had the opportunity to go to the Boring CPO, and they had a couple of questions that they needed answers to, and I want to thank staff for getting information to me so I could get it to their leadership. I think they were pleased, and they were definitely pleased with the fact that we have set aside some defense funds in case there's a SLAPP lawsuit. That seems to be a theme with all the CPOs, and everywhere I have gone, they have made it clear that that is really appreciated. It's a shame that there are people out there who will try to bully people into not being able to participate in the public process, but that's the world that we live in, and so thank you, Don, for figuring out a solution to help folks be able to participate in this process and give us information so we can make better decisions. Tomorrow I'll be going to in the evening, I'll be going to the Mount Hood community for a town hall there, and I'd encourage any of my colleagues who'd like to go to attend. It's going to be at 6 o'clock in the evening, and it's, again, just to let folks know that we do pay attention to what's important to them in the rural communities and to let them know some of the things that we are doing as a county commission. And now I will move on to the puppy. This is Carl, and he ain't nothing but a hound dog, as the saying goes. He can be the hound of your dreams if you come down to meet him today. He is friendly with other dogs, so bring the whole pack down. Carl will need a home with kids over 6 because he's a big guy and doesn't always know his own strength. Carl's about 5 years old, an English coonhound, walks nicely on a leash, and would love to follow his nose on adventures with you. For more information about Carl and other adoptable dogs, please contact Clackamas County Dog Services at 503-655-8628 or at www.clackamas.us/dogs. And say hi to Carl.
Great. Next is Paul.
Yeah, a couple days ago, I had noticed the picture of Carl up on the counter, front counter, and I read the first line or two, and I said, "Oh, geez, I need to get the verse of that song, which was Elvis Presley. Ain't nothing but a hound dog." And actually, when you read the verse, I like the song, and and when you actually read the lyrics, you realize, oh my gosh, this is a sad song. So, one of the lines I just thought I'd just say is that
actually predates Elvis.
You ain't never caught a rabbit, and you ain't no friend of mine. And I thought that was kind of sad. So Carl needs a friend, and I urge people out there to really look hard at Carl. And by the way, there's a lot of other verses in here, but I just thought it was interesting that sometimes you can really like a song for the tune and the hum, and you sing along, but sometimes you're about to learn the lyrics, he goes, oh my gosh, is that what that song's about? And it changes your perspective on it. I'd like to just thank Commissioner Schrader for reading that one email from Mr. Gustafson. I think that, we did do a lot of research, and we did a lot of work, and I too want to thank our staff. And what was unique about this venture is that our different departments, different purposes, different disciplines, and different roles in the county came together on working through all the hiccups and some of the obstacles to at least get us to this point. And we still have a road to hoe. But his citing of what he found on the website in Eugene with regard to the businesses climbing on and getting on board, and I said this early yesterday, that if people read the material and actually investigate this, they'll realize that this was very thoughtful and that it's embraced. And like I said, I have some family members that live quite nearby this facility that have true, the community really has embraced this. So as we move forward, I think you're right, we do need to have a further involvement. And I was pleased to hear some of the people who spoke yesterday in opposition approach me yesterday wanting to be part of this program going forward. So I really believe in their hearts they support it, and that we'll all get there.
And actually, I also want to just like to make a comment with this, because I want to thank Commissioner Fisher, because I think that our intuition was that if we could have a little bit more time, maybe we could have done that, and I want to thank her for it. I know that we're on the same page with this, and love you gentlemen, but sometimes slow down a little bit, so we can just make sure that our comfort level is there with this kind of a process, okay? So, very gentle. Nice, because it was a lot of work done, and it was hard on all of us. And I think that it's going to behoove us that when we move forward with this, my sense is if we do have a colleague that's kind of uncomfortable and has significant questions, it's okay. When I was first a commissioner, I remember staff telling me, right, Mary? Mary's nodding her head. It's okay if you don't make a land use decision that day. Okay, so I want to thank all of you, though, for moving it forward, because I do understand the necessity and the fact that you're kind of get her done kind of folks. So there we go.
I appreciate those comments. I can say that as a commissioner, being here for 7 years, I too have been in that very same predicament, saying maybe we didn't, I felt that maybe we didn't really have all the information or investigate, and been criticized for that, well, you know, for those once or twice opportunities in 7 years to be criticized, well, now you're indecisive or something like that. I mean, I was criticized for that, and I think, wait a minute, that doesn't happen very often. Most of you know that I'm a study and actually try to read as much as I can, and sometimes I don't get everything. So we're all human.
Thank you,
if it wasn't for the urgency of the people, and what we're trying to do is get this facility up and operating before the weather comes. Just knowing the timeline and knowing that we got the fair the following week, we've got our summer break, that we just don't have the time. And that you're right, both of you are right, I think we're all right, that public process will come with the actual application for this site-specific thing, and so that opportunity will be there. So knowing that was in my head, I felt on behalf of those out there that need the help, that was what was driving me to do it yesterday.
A sense of urgency.
Yeah, it was, there is.
Understand.
So thank you for that. So anyhow, what I really wanted to do today was, I want to read the resolution. I'm just going to take my time to read the resolution, and then I'm done. I'm not going to say anything further than that. So the resolution we approved today states as follows: a resolution committing Clackamas County to bipartisanship and political acceptance. Whoops, pardon me. I'm reading the wrong, I'm reading the old one. Let me grab the new one. I just had it open here. I take that back. So it's a resolution reaffirming Clackamas County as nonpartisan. Whereas the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners are elected to nonpartisan seats and commit themselves to respecting each other's political perspectives, those of local, regional, and national elected officials, county residents, and stakeholders. And whereas Clackamas County is committed to achieving outcomes that improve the safety, health, and prosperity of all who live, work, and recreate in Clackamas County. And whereas Oregon voter registrations include non-affiliated, independent, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Working Families, Pacific Green, Constitution, Progressive, and Americans elect. And whereas the county acknowledges the diverse political views of all persons and believes everyone, no matter what their political affiliation, should be treated with respect regardless of race, color, national origin, immigration or refugee status, ethnicity, primary language, religion, gender, gender identity and expression, sexual orientation, marital status, mental, emotional, and/or physical ability, age, or economic status. And whereas county elected officials will constructively and collaboratively work to solve problems that lead to improved outcomes, better assessment and understanding of decisions and issues, and thereby creating more effective decision-making. And whereas political vitriol, animus, and diatribe are great impediments to the work of the county, and whereas good ideas and decisions are derived from diverse political perspectives, and to reject good ideas because of party affiliation is counterproductive to establishing the common good. Now therefore, Clackamas County Board of Commissioners does hereby resolve as follows. The Clackamas County Board of Commissioners affirms the value of nonpartisanship in its deliberations and determinations and vows to respectfully take into consideration differing political perspectives on proposed policies. The Clackamas County Board of Commissioners, elected on a nonpartisan basis, will leave partisanship at the door to fully serve all the residents of Clackamas County. Thank you.
Great. Sonia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been thinking a lot about housing, homelessness, the continuum of care, and the decision that we made, or that 3 of you made yesterday. 2 of us did not join in that decision. And I just want to give an explanation as to why I voted no. I voted no mostly in part because I don't believe we've had the process that's been necessary to get the input, which creates the community support to move forward. The only input that I had yesterday at the time that I made that vote was the testimony that we received that was mostly in opposition, and mostly in opposition because there's a concern about putting people, putting veterans, putting some of our most vulnerable citizens in industrial zones. I want to just give some perspective on this issue. There used to be a time when it was against the law to be what they say as ugly. I want to just read an ordinance that used to be, it started in 1880 in San Francisco, then it moved to Portland, and then it's in Chicago. These are referred to the ugly laws, and it states, no person who is diseased, maimed, mutilated, or in any way deformed, so as to be unsightly or disgusting object or improper person to be allowed in or on the public ways or in other public places in this city, shall therein or thereupon expose himself to public view. So there was a time when we removed people from our communities, we put them in poorhouses, we put them in jail. In fact, in 1974 was the last time they tried to prosecute the ugly laws. And the prosecutor at the time says, I'm sorry, I can't have a definition of ugly, I refuse to prosecute this case. So I just want to say that we were making a decision yesterday that removes people from public view, puts them on an industrial site that's a half-mile away from transportation. These are veterans. Many will have disabilities, difficulty with transportation. I see the urgency. I don't want people under the bridge, out in the woods. I want them sheltered. But I think those issues, we have to weigh the urgency with the removal, and we have to decide as a policy, what is our zoning? And one of the questions that I had is, okay, we zone this for industrial, but what about commercial? What about residential? Did we ever look at saying we have an emergency for transitional housing and we need to look at all available places? Was that ever part of our policy? And I didn't have the answers to those questions yesterday. I am confident that all of you support the values that I share, and I'm confident that we're going to work through these questions and we're going to come up with a solution to this. But as we just did a nonpartisan resolution looking at the perspectives of everyone, I didn't have time to share this yesterday. I didn't have time to have Jennifer talk about the ways that we could have addressed transportation within the zoning ordinance because we just moved too fast. And 3 moved ahead, 2 of us did not, but I'm confident that because I know you and I trust all of your values and your heart, that we will work to resolve these issues.
Yeah, and I'm going to apologize to you too, because I should have communicated more thoroughly with you all on that. You know, this is not a Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think-
I'm sorry, Sonia.
I don't think there's any hard feelings. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I know that we face tough decisions sometimes, that we want to make good, wise decisions. And as I mentioned yesterday during the hearing, I foresee us making a resolution for commercial and possibly others. But right now, what we have a piece of property that will fit that. It happens to be zoned in industrial. We're trying to be compliant with our own laws and regulations. And as I mentioned yesterday at a later point, not ironically, it just happens to be that we have a lot of homeless people in the industrial area already, and some of which are veterans. So we're actually not moving them from somewhere to some negative place. This transition, the principle of the transition is to move them temporarily to one location in order to move them to an ideal location, mixed in our community in a diverse way, and not concentrated in any particular area. So this is not an encampment. It's an opportunity. It's a short-term transition. And the other piece about this is that it just so happens, as our studies have indicated, that sometimes a lot of veterans trek out into the wilderness or these industrial areas, which just happens to be near the river, because it's more remote. So we're actually taking some of these people and actually opening a place for them to move them out of that very industrial area that they're in today.
Okay. Well, we'll work on it together, I think is the message, guys. That's all. That's what I'm trying to say. And be more communicative. Sure.
Briefly.
Why not?
Finished first? Okay, Ken.
I would just like to, I agree that we need to work more on the process. And I'm glad you said what you said yesterday with respect to the folks from the industrial community that encourage them to join this process. I think that's an excellent idea.
We got a response, by golly.
We got a response. Yeah. That said, I would like to make the point that we are not removing anybody. We are trying to house people. Nobody will be in this facility that doesn't want to be there. They will not be compelled to be there. It's voluntary. So what we're trying to do is house people who are unhoused, not remove people. And this just happens to be, if you want to be site-specific, a piece of land that's available that we own. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I actually have not visited the site. I know approximately where it is, and compared to the Kenton project we saw, it's a heck of an improvement. And I also agreed with Sonia. First thing, we can do better. And why are we hiding these people? But this was not a site-specific issue, so for that reason, I could accept it. And it's not to say that this site isn't right. It sounds like a pretty good site, but like I mentioned before, we did not get federal funding for a project because of access to transit in Oregon City at one point. This site, we need to figure out a way to get better access to transit, maybe by providing some services, which the Kenton neighborhood did have. They had somebody taking people to services, and that's something we can look at. We have a great program at our senior center that does exactly that. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that, you know, I have heard this for decades, and that is that communication was not good. But, you know, we sent notification to all these people. And we invited them. Some people visited them.
We visited those businesses, yes, that's what we did.
And so, and the other thing that we've been trying to say for a long time is that our door is open. If there was concern, coming to visit us, our door is open. Happy to listen. There were comments yesterday we actually adopted into the thing, and that is that Clackamas County owned. Now, Clackamas County owns property all over the place. I'd be happy to put one of these in Happy Valley on 122nd, which is probably a good place to do it. Or in Lake Oswego if we own any land. But, I mean, we have to look across the county. And I was very concerned that we can't wait a long time because winter is And you wouldn't believe it outside right now, but winter's not far away. And because it was not site-specific, I wanted to move forward. Now we're going to have the discussion about how we make this site that we are considering be right. But we did listen to property owners, and we did make some adjustments. I mean, businesses and property owners around. But I also want them to remember the great opportunity to hire a vet close by, and giving them a home to live in. Like I mentioned, in the Kenton neighborhood, people now have places to store their stuff, take a shower, change, and go across the street and go to work. I hope that happens. Finally, that report is on the website and can be accessed. I don't know that website specifically. I'm sure we can get it for you. And I also wanted to mention, we're all wearing these, well, some of us are wearing our red shirts.
I have mine.
It's a
Actually,
red,
Kelly, yeah.
white, and blue county shirt day, right? Because it's employee week, you know. I don't know how many of you have interactions with our employees, but we have a lot to be thankful for. Once a month we do employee recognition for their 5, 10, 20, 30-year commitment to service of the community at the county. And every time I go to those, I'm amazed how wonderful, how caring, and how our employees really go beyond to try to help you know, the people that they represent. And today, this week, we need to thank them for the hard work they do. I'm excited. I think there's a couple of games. I can't remember if I'm on a team, but
Cornhole?
huh?
Cornhole.
Yeah, am I on a team?
I think so.
I don't know, do you just sign up?
People sign me up for things I don't know about. I could be.
You're in the dunk tank.
I mean, and Martha did that the last time, and she was in the dunk
I
tank.
didn't know there was another dunk tank. I would have done it again.
Really? I wouldn't.
Perfect day for it.
Last time I did it, I was freezing out.
I know, and I spent a fortune trying to hit that target without luck.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Actually, I spent $5, but anyway. Anyway, with that, we'll end today. Oh, wait, I've got them right in front of me. A couple announcements. First thing, we have a small grant program, $250,000, which we set aside each year. Hoping to get that to $1 million someday. The goal of small grants is to help the most vulnerable families, seniors, and others to meet their basic needs, such as food assistance and abuse prevention. Priorities will be given to projects regarding food, housing, and homelessness prevention. Applications are due by August 21st at 5 p.m. To apply, fill out the online application at the website, which is on the screen right now. And for more information, please contact Caroline Hill at 503-655-8261. And finally, we have our business meeting on the 17th. We'll be at the Clackamas County Fair. The meeting will be held at 10 a.m. at the main lawn stage. Visitors fair will get to come in free up until 10 a.m. on August 17th if they enter red or blue gate. We hope you will attend the meeting and spend some time enjoying our great county fair. Hope to see you there. The fair runs from Tuesday, August 15th to Saturday, August 19th. For more information and a full schedule, please visit the website at www.clackamas.us/fair, and that's also on the screen. So with that, we'll adjourn. Thank you.